this is Barrie, a city constantly evolving. At any time, a whole host of pressures challenge the intricate tapestry of city government. In this series, we will explore the priorities deemed essential for progress, even if they don't always inspire unanimous applause. Join me each week for a candid conversation with a member of our city government as we uncover the stories behind the scenes of Barrie, a city on the move. Welcome to Barrie City on the Move. I'm Arif Khan, and I'm so glad you're tuning in to watch the show, whether you're receiving it at home on cable, on the internet streaming, or on YouTube. I'm very glad you're here. In this series, we aim to explore the inner workings of the city, whether that's governance or operations, and in many cases, it's the strategic relationships and partnerships with third-party entities, including the one we're going to cover today. And I am thrilled to have as a guest with me today, Kathleen Trainor, who's the Executive Director of Tourism Barrie. Kathleen, thanks so much for taking time in your schedule.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit since we've connected and got caught up, and you've been leading the charge at Tourism Barrie for over 2 decades, I think.
Yep, 22 years.
22 years. Thank you for the service. I really want to get into sort of what's happened. So much has happened in the last several years with a pandemic and COVID changes and technology. And as the city continues to grow towards its population targets for 2030, 2035, 2050, lots must be going on in your neck of the woods as well. So I wanted to explore that. The first being really, what is the role of a tourism office for our audience members, and what are your priorities?
So Tourism Barrie is a destination marketing organization. Sometimes we call them destination organizations. Sometimes they're destination marketing and management, because you're really managing the tourism sector in your city. And so most of them are not-for-profits led by a board of directors from tourism businesses within Barrie and our surrounding area as well. And so that's Tourism Barrie has a board of directors. We have 13 board of directors and a City of Barrie representative. And so your main objective is to promote your city to the outside world and bring new money into your city through tourism. That's our main objective, is to job creation and to bring new money into your city through tourism.
And that is no small feat. And I want to get into some of those details over the course of the show with you. We'll explore really tourism as an economic driver, and what does that really mean? It's a great sounding phrase, but what does it really mean? Who are you working with? Who are you codependent with? And then what are some of the areas of focus? What's changed? I want to get into all of that with you, but let's start a little bit with a little bit about who you are as an organization and who your colleagues are. And a lot of it is sort of working behind the scenes and things just magically happen. And I've had an opportunity to sit on your board for a couple of years, and one thing's for sure, I learned that your team is working around the clock, really almost 7 days a week in some cases, to make things happen in the area. But give us a little bit of an idea of tourism as an economic driver. Why is that a true statement, and how does it apply here locally in Barrie?
Well, tourism is an economic driver because, of course, when tourists come in, they bring new money into your economy. How the structures are now in 2019, the Ontario government allowed municipalities to put in a municipal accommodation tax, or a bed tax. And so Tourism Barrie, like all other tourism offices in Ontario, are funded through a municipal accommodation tax. Ours is 6%, and that is Tourism Barrie is primarily funded. We get 50% of the funding. The city gets the other 50% of the funding. So really the way that model is that our main focus is to drive overnight stays, because our investment is in our investments are in overnight stays, because you have to stay in a hotel to get the 6% tax. The better we do, the more people we send to a hotel, the more money we make, the more investment we have in tourism. So the main focus of our campaigns and a lot of our destination marketing campaigns and our management is managing those overnight stays. And so, what's important in that management aspect of what's important if you're in corporate tourism, sport tourism, or even leisure, is that you need to spread the occupancy, who stays in the hotels year round, to keep sustainable jobs, to keep it sustainable, and also you want to fill the hotel room every day. And then we have something called shoulder seasons, and that's when, November, when there's nothing to do and there's no snow and it's warm outside, and you're like, well, you can maybe hike, but there's not a lot of activities to do. What other opportunities do you bring into the city to fill those hotel rooms?
Mm-hmm.
So really, that's what managing the destination is ensuring that you have a sustainable year-round hotel occupancy.
And that's really interesting. And I do want to dive a little bit deeper into that with you. First things first, the whole concept of an economic driver. You talked about bringing new dollars into the economy, and I don't think that can be overstated enough. Traditionally speaking, if we're just circulating the same dollars from locals within the community, supporting each other, supporting small business, those are all great ideals.
Yes.
They're all fantastic things to do. But if we're just continuing to circulate those same dollars throughout, there's actually no win, no growth that's happening. So the concept of actually going out of our market to drive tourism dollars into our market,
yes,
to bring new dollars in, that's where the growth can happen. And I really think that's worth stating.
Yes, that's where, and of course, for instance, in 2023, the economic impact for the tourists that actually stayed in a hotel was $638 million. So that's a huge amount of money. So you have $600 million of new money coming into the economy. That's job creation. That's bringing new jobs. Again, tourism is the #1 employer of youth. It's the #1 employer of new Canadians. People who choose not to have post-secondary educations, those are all jobs available, level entry jobs available for your community.
So people who are supporting the restaurant industry, people who are supporting the hotel industry, people who are supporting also the recreation facility, whether it's Hardwood Hills or Snow Valley, or the ski hills and resorts, the boats, etc. So I really am glad that they were touching on that, though. The other thing that I want to touch on is the fact that you're talking about room nights, basically,
yes,
or people staying overnight in a hotel. And there is a difference between sort of day trip tourism,
right,
versus overnight stay tourism. And as you mentioned, the overnight stays are where you're going to collect that 6%.
And also, the largest economic impact is an overnight stay. So when you stay over, you're going to eat maybe once or twice. You're more than likely to do a little bit of shopping. So you're going to support your local retailers. You're going to support the restaurants. You're going to go to activity. Hockey tournaments, for instance, the hockey tournaments come in, they're here 3 or 4 days, and while in between you're waiting for your tournament to come in, you could go somewhere to eat. Mom could go shopping, or a lot of times we send them off to actually go tubing at Snow Valley.
Yeah. We'll definitely get into some of those uses and some of those engagements that people get into. We'll get into some of those in the next segments as they come up. What I wanted to ask you about, though, is really that codependency, or that relationship that you as a tourism office has with the municipality. And in order for there to be success, what are some of the fundamentals that need to get really identified and aligned and hammered out?
Well, tourism definitely needs to align with your community values. And so that's actually been the change in destination marketing organizations and destination organizations, has been that alignment with your city economic development, really. So you need to align with community values. It's also a huge talent recruitment. And so, because your tourist office is your #1 marketer, I mean, our ads out to Ontario, let's say, are, there are millions of impressions, and we're the ones who are showcasing the best of Barrie, and so the things to do and the festival events, the lifestyle, what you're for. So we're probably the #1 marketer of Barrie and the image of Barrie, and we take that responsibility. We take that responsibility very seriously. And a good example, not to give out our secret sauce, because I have to be careful to give out our secret sauce, but something like you have an employer that comes in and you need a bunch of engineers. So let's just say Napoleon opens up this whole new section and we need all these engineers and they can't find people to work. What we do is we actually go geofence all the universities' engineering departments, and you geofence them and you put them and you target all of those students about come after you graduate, come move to Barrie. There's great jobs, it's low housing, you can find housing, there's great outdoor entertainment, there's outdoor recreation. So that part of that talent recruitment is also part of our job.
Well, I'm glad you touched on that actually, because there is a ton of science and data. People would think, oh, tourism office, that's great, that's the place that I go in and they've got brochures and pamphlets on things that I can go do. Sure.
Yeah.
And then there's everything else that you're doing. I talked about it right off the top of the show, all of the behind the scenes things that's going on. Tourism Barrie is a massive aggregator of data.
Yes.
Talk to me about some of the work that you're doing in data.
So we have analytics. I mean, number one, data doesn't lie, and so you have lots of analytics. So our website shows the analytics of who's coming on there and who have we targeted and who's looking to come to Barrie. And so we have analytics on the top 5 countries, the demographics, psychographics, so that we can then make sure that we're tailoring our messages to the right markets. We've also this year have engaged with Environics. So Environics is the #1 research data company in North America, in Canada at least, and there we actually ping everybody's cell phone that comes through. So we have all their data. We know where they're from, where they came from, their postal code, where they live. We use the Prism, and so we have so much data, and then we're also doing every festival and event. So a good example is the air show. We did a thorough data collection on who came to the air show, who are they, where'd they come from, who's coming to Barrie, what postal code, so that we know who our target markets are, who are missing, and who we need to then go after. So,
and I think that's, for anybody who doesn't have a propeller on their head, basically, and isn't studying that stuff, it's knowing where they're coming from so that you can then retarget and market back to them again with it, whether it's offers, or other engagement, basically.
Yes, and our, again, if you go back to the overnight stay, are we targeting people far enough that they're driving and engaging them enough, because you have to engage them for over 7 hours for them to actually warrant an overnight stay. So, it's an indicator of if we're doing our job. So are we promoting people to come long enough? Are we promoting them to stay in Barrie, stay overnight? And are we engaging them and giving them enough to do so that they stay 7 hours so that they actually stay overnight? This
is fascinating, and I have a little bit of familiarity with marketing, and it is never surprises me when a client says, I ran an ad for a weekend and I didn't get anything out of it. Why didn't it happen? And you just touched on something that's so important, and that is the amount of engagements, the number of engagements, whether it's the number of page views or the number of impressions or the 7 hours that you talked about. For someone to decide that they're going to spend an overnight in your community, you have to have connected with them for 7 hours of content, basically, and that's phenomenal. When we come back from the break, I want to get further into detail in terms of how you use data to drive the traffic, and I also want to get into sort of what's changed, and some of the legacy thinking may or may not be relevant today, and the plan may be changing or may have to change in order to remain ahead and current and successful. So I'll let you think on that while we go to break, but when we come back, there will be more from Kathleen Trainor, who's the Executive Director of Tourism Barrie. Stay tuned. You want to know this because she's driving the economy in our community. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and I'm having a great conversation with Kathleen Trainor, Executive Director of Tourism Barrie. And before the break, we were covering a lot. Who is Tourism Barrie? What is a tourism office? What's the point of it? We got into some data, the importance of data collection, et cetera, and really tourism as an economic driver. Now, I want to also just make sure we're clear of something. You are not a department of the city of Barrie. You are a third party. You are not-for-profit, or Tourism Barrie, is a not-for-profit entity.
Yes.
A destination management organization or office that works in partnership with the municipality, and I think it's clear to state that you're not a government office, and I think it's important to make that clarification.
Yes, we're industry-led. So on our board of directors, we have two hoteliers, we have the ski resort, we have event management, we have a theater, tax-free theater, Arcadis on our board. So we try to have all the different tourism sectors represented on the board of directors, so that we are representing tourism as a whole, and what Barrie has to offer is giving us the advice on direction on where to take tourism.
So you're getting data, you're collecting data. You talked about pinging cell phones.
Yes.
You talked about tapping into environics for demographic and psychographic information, knowing how many people earn X amount of income and what professions there are and where they live and all that kind of thing. And there's some great data to be had there, but you're also tapping into the expertise of your hoteliers, your restaurateurs, your leisure tourism, whether they're running a creative cafe or pottery, this type of thing, which is fantastic. And you are resident driven basically as a board of directors.
Yes, you want to align with your community values again, and to ensure that we're heading in the direction of where your community wants you to go.
So, speaking of where we want to go, sometimes we are going to change direction of where we came from to where we're going to go. Sometimes how we did things yesterday doesn't necessarily apply to how things are going to be tomorrow. Right. And I want to tap into some of that. Your data has really, in the last few years, presented some interesting information, whether you predicted it or not, and maybe you'll tell me a little bit about that. But hate to bring it up again, because to me it's a little bit like I'd like to not talk about this anymore, but the pandemic actually had a major impact on the economy and on tourism in particular.
Yes. And
it actually shifted, some things leapfrogged actually, in terms of who the real drivers are.
Yeah, so again, I've been with Tourism Barrie for 20 years, over 20 years, and for the last 18 years or 15 years, we have been a solid corporate market. And so 60% of the people that stayed in a Barrie hotel actually were here on corporate business. And then came the pandemic, and that completely shifted, and people started going on Zoom and started not maybe coming 4 times a year, or just completely, they found different ways. And I think Canada is a very educated, highly technical country. People, and it's freezing cold, and people live so far away, you don't travel, and they get used to it. So I think they adopted technology and adopted Zoom and adopted that much more than other countries. And so we had a huge shift from being a corporate, almost primarily corporate tourism, to now being a sport tourism and leisure, and corporate is down probably 38%.
So we'll get into that 38%.
Yeah.
That is a huge number. So just putting things into perspective one more time, because numbers are relevant. $630 million in economic impact in 2023, of which 60% of that was corporate? Is that what you're...
No, that is all leisure, sport tourism with some. No, the corporate, that would have been 2019.
My apologies, absolutely.
Yeah. So when the pandemic came, of course, that all plummeted, and tourism, as they say, took it on the chin for all the other, and it was the last to come back. And we're still in pre-pandemic, and meeting and conferences across Canada are still down. Destination Canada has us not going back up to the 2019 levels until like I think they said 2028. And I actually think it's never coming back.
I was going to say, I've always known you to be a realist. That's not pessimism. That is, reading the tea leaves, looking at the data, and making your modeling predictions. And your suggestion is, don't expect it to come back to the same level by any stretch.
No.
So
unless we opened up a big conference center, but.
Oh well, okay. Well, you heard it here. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's the thing. We have embraced technology as a society. Some would say to our benefit, and others would say to the detriment. Some of us are that much more productive because we can go from one video conferencing meeting, whether you call it Zoom or Teams or Google Meets, you can go from one meeting into the next, into the next, into the next.
Yes.
Some say that's great. Others, maybe not so much. There's a human element, there's a psychological element, there's a sense of community. Canadians certainly have adapted, not just adopted. They've adopted the technology, but they've adapted to meeting that way.
I think so.
Now, in recognition of it, though, you're seeing on the other side, though, a big swing towards sport tourism.
Right, and well, we purposely did that purposefully. So again, we were a corporate market, so people were here Monday to Wednesday, and so we found that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had very low occupancy. So really starting in 2019, we started really targeting the sport tourism market to fill that weekend. And then came the pandemic, and all of a sudden we found corporate had not bounced back, and we started then accelerating the investments we're making on how to become a better sport tourism destination. And so, you know, the city of Barrie, which is a great partner with Tourism Barrie, we did a sport tourism strategy that just got launched about a month ago. So now we have a sport tourism strategy, we have a tourism master plan, and so we've got those plans. But specifically with sport tourism, we've invested substantial amount of money in that. The city also invests money in giving grants to local sport organizations to get them to step up. Tourism Barrie has a sport tourism grants as well that we have to give to local sport organizations to develop their one-day tournament into a two-day tournament, so we have that overnight stay. So we've been investing money in that and just continuously investing in sport tourism to make that one of our primary markets, because Barrie's prime for a sport tourism market.
So correct me, please. Don't hold back. Correct me if I'm wrong. My impression is that much of the work that's being done at Tourism Barrie, local residents aren't really going to see it. They're not going to see the daily activity. In fact, it's meant for those outside of the community. So the money that you're spending, the advertising, the marketing, the actual on-sites, the shows and trade shows that you're doing,
yes,
it's mostly seen by people outside of our community.
That's correct. So, I mean, unless you're, you know, you certainly can subscribe to our Instagram and our Facebook and get that, but we are primarily more than 40 kilometers away, because you need to be more than 40 kilometers to get away, and you also have to engage them. And what's really interesting in our analytics is more people stay overnight in sport tourism at winter than they do in the summer. So when they come for a summer tournament, you're driving back home because it's still light out till 10 o'clock at night. So we see double the amount of overnight stays for our tournaments in the winter. Just a little
the weather's
data.
Nice. Why am I going to drive in the slush and the snow and risk it?
So we invest more money in that kind of winter sport tourism because it gives us a better ROI. Just a little tidbit on data, but yeah.
And now, the other sort of segment of society that's going to see your efforts is going to be the business community, the industry, whether it's the hoteliers and the entertainment and leisure, et cetera. They're also going to be seeing it. But you talked about recruitment. You're a recruitment focused or centric organization. Talk to me about recruiting. Yeah,
the talent recruitment is, you know, there's, because we're the #1 promoter of Barrie and we're outside, because that little, you know, today's visitors, tomorrow's investor, my little favorite phrase, but we do, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars go out to marketing outside of Barrie to bring people into Barrie, and you don't really necessarily see it. We do go to trade shows and we're doing that marketing, and then our website is really more of a portal. So we're trying to get you to our website and then redirect you to go ski or to go snowshoe or go eat, you know, certain food or do different activities, and so that's how the businesses benefit. So when you are, because our website is our portal, all calls to action, all our advertising, et cetera, always goes back to tourismbarrie.com, and then that way we amplify the message on behalf of small businesses. They might not have the kind of money we have, so that's, you know, we have a $280,000 marketing budget, and so that's how the small businesses can leverage. They want to leverage what Tourism Barrie is doing. So you want to be on our website because we're going to drive them to all the different parts and social media and posts and blogs and et cetera.
Well, I'm going to touch a nerve right now, a little bit of a third rail. It's been a hot topic for a year plus, certainly in Barrie, and you were talking about sport tourism as being sort of an up-and-comer and something that Barrie really wants to identify and is primed, I believe were the words that you used, primed for really, you know, owning and dominating in this space. And, you know, sport tourism and sports in general has been on the radar of many residents and council in Barrie. And there's the famous, you know, where are we going to build the new stadium? And whether it's a stadium that became a soccer pitch or a multi-use facility or a parade ground, Tourism Barrie must have been playing a little bit of inside baseball, so to speak, on that topic as well. What's Tourism Barrie's perspective on it?
Well, you know, our perspective, we look at Kingston. Kingston is one of our top destinations that has a big domestic, and Kingston does it really well. Kingston has an arena right downtown within a half a kilometer. I don't know, 4,000 people, I think, fits the arena. 4,000 people leave, let's say even half of them, 2,000, 3,000 people, then flood into their downtown and eat and drink and, you know, bring in new money, again, into all the restaurants, et cetera. So we certainly believe in having a stadium and having a, as an anchor to your downtown. We need to revitalize our downtown. We need to bring more people. You have these huge office towers that are, some of those are going for $1 million. So you have these big, not office, sorry, residential
Condos,
towers coming in, all those condos, and I think there's like 8 slated to be built. And so, you know, we need to keep our downtown robust. We need to have entertainment. We need to have restaurants, and you need to spur that whole economic impact, that whole economic drive, and new business to come in. And we need to start spreading the downtown all the way over to, you know, to Bradford Street. Like there's so much capacity to build more of the downtown and make it into a bigger downtown.
Now, there are going to be some people who say, I like the way it used to be, and I don't know if you can please everybody in that particular case, but you are talking about driving the economy. You're talking about tourism and sport tourism in particular as an economic driver, and you're telling me that your professional expertise suggests and your data suggests that there's opportunity for capacity.
Yeah, because if you bring in a new stadium and then more people are coming into your restaurant, you're going to expand your restaurant. You're going to up the game, and then all of a sudden, people next door is going to go, "There's a vacant storefront. I should be opening up a sport paraphernalia. Maybe we should opening up, you know, another restaurant." So, you know, when you have these big anchors and you have this influx of people, you're going to open that entrepreneurship, which drives Barrie's economy.
And if we're not talking about our, you know, stance on pro or anti of this stadium, we are talking about housing affordability, we are talking about jobs, we're talking about good jobs, et cetera. And you're talking about this economic driver. Now, the fact is, so you are quoted in this report. I believe you're referenced in this report, Marshall Green's report, and you do have a position on it, whether or not it should be in that ideal location that was originally proposed or a different ideal location.
Our position has always been sport tourism. That's our job. That's the hat I wear, is tourism hat. And so any facility being built needs to have the capacity and have the size to fit a national championship, because that's the best of. That's who you want to bring. You want to bring in national and provincial championships. They bring in the most money. They bring in the elite athletes. They're here the longest. So whatever you do, whatever you build, it needs to be able to house standards to run a national championship. Rugby has national championship sizes and what you need, and when you're filling out these bids, they say, like the Memorial Cup, you need to have an arena that fits 4,500 people. Our arena doesn't. You need, you need seating, even the soccer, even what Toronto's doing with FIFA. Those are criteria that you have to have a stadium that fits so many people and sells so many tickets, because that's the amount of money they make. So whatever we do has to accommodate that.
And so when we come back from the break, we're going to pick that up, because you've actually got an opinion on also the ancillary things, not just the venue itself, but the industry around it and where there's an ideal fit on that. So I'm going to let you think on that for a second. When we come back from the break, we'll talk more with Kathleen about ideas around driving the sport tourism economy. And we're also going to take a look, just to let you know, we're going to take a look at what some of the other comparator municipalities are doing that's worked well, and maybe what we can learn from them. So stay with us for more from Kathleen Trainor, Executive Director of Tourism Barrie. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move. We're talking tourism, and tourism as an economic driver. Kathleen, so glad you're here with me. We left off, we were talking, I went there probably one of the most contentious issues in this city in the last year or so, and it is that idea of our waterfront and putting sport tourism on the waterfront, utilizing it. Last check, there will be a parade ground next to the South Shore Center for the Barrie Navy Sea Cadets, which is great going forward. That's fantastic, but there was consultation and reconsideration around the idea of an actual stadium or multi-purpose use field, et cetera, in that area. You got some thoughts on it, though, and that is that obviously sports is an economic driver. It's great. It's good for the community. We need to push deeper in there, and if you're going to do it, you got to do it right.
Yes, and you have to do it within a half a kilometer from your downtown, where the restaurants and the retailers and the bars and all that economic driver, because you can't put something in the middle of nowhere and then there's no economic impact to that, because the economic impact is people then afterwards or before going to eat, going shopping, and putting down their money to local businesses.
So we don't want people getting in the car after the game and going home. We want people to say, hey, let's grab an ice cream, let's grab a beer, let's grab a dinner, something like that.
And same with the theater, the same thing with the theater, the same concept with the theater. They're going to go have something to eat and then go into see a theater production or any entertainment. That's your economic impact. It's not the ticket sales. No one's making money on your $35 ticket. You're making money on the food and the venues and the concessions and the beer and walking over before and after.
Well, and that's actually something else that's really worth considering, and I don't think we're going to have a long conversation on it, but when it comes to marketing, the $35 ticket that maybe people are or are not making money on, that's the loss leader, that's the break even, but that's also the thing that's being marketed.
Yes.
And then everything else reaps the reward of that marketing effort in terms of secondary dollars being spent in the community.
Correct. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you for that. So, you're a proponent of bringing it a little bit closer to the downtown.
I am.
Okay. Now, here's a question for you, though. Oftentimes, and you said it yourself earlier, especially in the summertime, people may or may not stay overnight.
Right.
We're going to sell more room nights in the winter period.
Yes.
We are in that interesting geographic location of, just a little too close to Toronto, not far enough, and you've got other communities like Collingwood that have ski hills and biking trails, and they've got hotels and conference space. Barrie's in that spot, that's maybe some people are getting in the car to go home. What's underutilized? What are we missing out on? What's something that we really haven't invested enough in when it comes to Barrie? What makes Barrie stand out?
It's called animating your waterfront. So we have not animated. The city's done a pretty good job. They have our little cycling, a bike rental. They have like a little paddle board coming in. It's called animating your waterfront. And so you want to animate the waterfront for leisure. And we also have not explored the huge potential, again, back to the sport tourism theme, with bringing in sports for the water. That way you're not, the facilities aren't taking all of the brunt of the sport tourism and your community. Again, it's aligning with your community, aligning with your values of your community, and what we have abundance of is a waterfront. So bringing in more canoe and kayak tournaments, bringing in more sailing tournaments, bringing in swimming tournaments, triathlons, and really utilizing the waterfront is, I think, what we need to do more of.
And that's so interesting that you say that, because right now we are exploring community centers. We're exploring potentially, as you talked about, the Saddlein Arena, if it sees a revamp or a reconstruction or an addition, depending on who's talking and who's counting the budget. But really, those are all capital investment heavy, infrastructure investment heavy, and we've got this beautiful, natural, low impact resource being our bay and our waterfront.
Yes.
So, aside from the day trippers who are coming to enjoy our beach, aside from people who are maybe doing a day activity of paddleboarding, which is all fantastic, and we want to continue that, you're saying that there's an untapped opportunity in driving the tourism industry on the water.
I think so. I do, yes, especially for summer. And, you know, Canada does very well with its rowing, does very well with canoeing. We're Olympic champions. And that's one of the things that Barrie needs to do is get that unique selling proposition. And we're going to be working with economic development in the next year to do that unique selling proposition and find out what Barrie can be a best of and what we can start doing. I know we're a big hockey town, which is fantastic, but we can also do other things, and we can really specialize in certain amount of sports. And I think with that big investment going with the Sea Cadets and the big investment on the South Shore Center, there is some capacity and some thought can be put towards, you know, what can we do more of and bring in, you know, rent the South Shore to the a kayak or canoeing tournament and then get your return on your investment, right?
Absolutely. And I was just, as you were speaking, I was just thinking actually Barrie was really founded because of its beautiful bay and obviously the man-made element of the bay, but going back to war times as well. And maybe some people, you know, historians may be all too ready to correct me, but I'm going to leave it at that. Here's the point, though, is water is there to be utilized, and we've got the regattas that happen and could happen more. We do have the Navy Sea Cadets, et cetera. So that's an interesting concept that you bring forward. Other municipalities have identified or found their identity. They've found their value proposition. I know, again, research and data is right up your alley. What are some examples? You mentioned Kingston earlier.
Kingston's always a champion. They do really good with their history. They have historical walking tours. They have augmented walking tours. They really do that well. And they have a big meeting and conference. They're fortunate they have Queen's University there, but they are investing in a new conference center. Not a really big one, but a mid-size one. So that's something Barrie could be doing. Burlington has a new mid-size conference center, which is great. Again, like we talked about that shoulder season. So you want to bring in, you need to have activities and something for people to do every single day or every weekend to have that sustainable job creation, sustainable jobs, not precarious jobs in the tourism industry. And so, you know, the Burlington is looking at that investment, and that's something that Barrie's doing too. I think it's interesting with what's floating out there with all the different baseball at Queen's Park. Is there a soccer field somewhere? Is this Sadlin Arena? So we tend to be looking at more of a sport-orientated investments, I see, in Barrie. And of course we've got the art, we've got the Performing Arts Center as well, so that's another interesting element.
You know, again, these are some conversations that have been going on for a number of years now, and the city is trying to figure out, you use the word alignment, the city and council and its stakeholders and its you know, those who are providing guidance. We're trying to finesse and figure out that perfect alignment. What does the community want? And you talked about that. So you floated some ideas about, you know, maybe investing more in utilizing our natural resource and our waterfront, but you've obviously touched on the conference space, you've touched on the Performing Arts Center. You also touched on doing it right in terms of if you're going to do it, it's got to be varsity or OFSA quality in order to do it. Some of these are larger capital investments. All the love in the world to our neighbors down in Brampton and Burlington, et cetera. They don't have the benefit that we have of this beautiful waterfront. Do we want to compete with them in some of these spaces, or is it actually a better idea from a business case to actually really carve out our own unique proposition?
You need to carve out your own unique proposition. I think you can't be everything to everybody, and you need to find what Barrie is good at and what the residents wants. And a really good example is also that over-tourism, and when you're not aligned with your community and you have your community people shooting water gun at all your tourists like they do in Spain and making headline news and not welcoming people, you don't want that either. So, you know, and also you have to remember that when you're building infrastructure and you're building for a tourism tourism, you're also benefiting your community. Your community benefits from all of that. So, you know, we always say the last person you invite is the tourist. So if we're starting to do all of this really well and you're doing it for your community and you've got these great different opportunities, either the waterfront or new arenas or new parade grounds, then, you know, you perfect it, you make it good, and then you invite the tourists. And that's where your ROI comes back, right?
So now with that also comes other growth, and our city is, you know, on track to grow by another, I don't know, 30,000, 50,000, 80,000, pick a decade, we're growing. Where does tourism play a role in the other element of economic development? You said in the first segment, if I remember correctly, today's tourist is?
Tomorrow's investor.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, so Tourism Barrie actually puts quite a bit of money towards getting people up on the GO train. So we have little things. We actually invite people to take the GO train to Barrie to then do leisure and to come up for all different things. And so our hope is to get people up from the GTA, take the GO train and go, this isn't that bad of a trip. I can commute. Look how beautiful. Look at the lifestyle. Look at the bigger home I can get. Look at the more affordability that I can have and for my family, and move here. And so that is one of our big campaigns, and that's part of that talent recruitment, or even we're getting people to move to Barrie. And of course, if you get someone to move here, you want them to open up a business, or you want to get them to get employed. So again, that goes back to driving that employment and getting new entrepreneurs and new business. Because Barrie, I think 72% of all businesses in Barrie are under 5 people, and so our backbone really is that entrepreneur, that small business, and getting them to move here and open up a business is the backbone of, you know, of the economy too.
So you touched on a couple things, and we got to go to break, but when we come back, you mentioned the GO train, for example. The City of Barrie has, in partnership with partners at the provincial level and the federal level, et cetera, also been investing in some other infrastructure, including transit, including roads, and including a brand new facility that's currently under construction with the relocation of the transit hub and terminal to sort of align, and you talked about alignment here, so there's some alignment happening with the city transit in connectivity with the provincial transit, the GO train, et cetera. And you've also got some interesting news that you're going to share with us. So when we come back from the break, let's talk about the importance of these strategic partnerships and that alignment. And you know, you're going to share that announcement with our friends in the community as well. So stay with us for more from Kathleen Trainor, Executive Director at Tourism Barrie. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and I'm learning so much about tourism and the value of tourism and economic impact of tourism, and let's talk about the future of tourism. Before we went to the break, I sort of gave a bit of a teaser. You've got an announcement to make, and I think there's a lot of fun to that, and it's amazing. These things just aren't happening by coincidence. There might actually be some planning in this announcement. Go for it. What's new on your horizon?
Well, Tourism Barrie moved. We're actually used to be in the South Shore Center, and we now have our own standalone. We're right at the corner of Essa and Tiffin at 4 Essa, and we are 2 blocks away from the new GO train station, because we do believe that the future of tourism is with the GO train, bringing 8 million people up from Toronto, the young urban professional that does not have a car, bringing them up when the rapid train comes in an hour and a half. There's huge potential. Those weekend getaways to come on the weekend and come explore Barrie is a huge potential. And so we're now going to be next door, and just like all the other destinations across Europe, when you arrive by train, there was always a tourist office. And so our tourist office is next door to the new station.
I think it's fantastic. And you know what, I want to pick on this just a little bit, of exploring it. Tourism Barrie's office for years has been in the South Shore Center. And I would tell you, though, unless you knew you were looking for it, you probably kind of missed it. Even if you were going for a wedding or an event, you might have missed it because it was kind of down the hallway. And I love that because, you know, people do, as much as Bayfield is one of those gateway entrances or exits off of the highway, certainly Essa Road is really flagged as that entrance to the Barrie
Yes.
and its core, and for Tourism Barrie's office to be right there on Essa Bradford, right where
Yes.
it changes over street names, but on the corner and right where the new public transit building is. Anybody who's been driving in the area would see the new ironworks, the steelworks, the construction of the new transit terminal. That's where you are. And if you don't mind, a little plug and shout out to the Farmhouse Restaurant. You are neighbors with the farmhouse,
Yes.
and so go grab something to eat before or after going to visit Tourism Barrie.
Or you come up from the Centennial Beach and hopefully go get something to eat at, because again, those day trippers that are just at your beach, you want them to have a tourism related spend, and so getting them to the farmhouse and then walking over to our office to check out what else to do in Barrie.
And there's been talk for a few years of what else is going to happen in the not so newly renovated structure of the old Allendale train station, but you're also a neighbor to that
Yes.
as well. So whether there's going to be a museum or some food and beverage, who knows what's going to happen there, but you're right in that prime location. And then you've got all the visitors who come for the annual festivals, whether it's Kempenfest or
Just a little more visible, and we'll have big signs and have that visibility that we need so that we're welcoming the visitor to Barrie.
Okay, but you're particularly enthusiastic about being near and next to in proximity to public transit. You
Yes.
believe it's the future. Why?
Because the future, more and more people do not have cars. They do ride sharing. We know that younger people are investing in technology in their phones rather than insurance, and just renting a car for the day is what they're doing. My son is 25 years old, and he just does public transport and GO trains, and he's used to it. And I do think that that is the fastest way to come up to Barrie, and you have 8 million people. Not only that, Hamilton is actually a big target market of Barrie, and you can jump up from Burlington, Hamilton, go on the GO train, come up. We had different cycling. We used to run this really cool cycling tourism, no carbon footprint. We would get people to come to the airport and go from the airport on the LRT to Barrie, and all on public transport with zero carbon. So there's a whole ecotourism, sustainable, zero carbon footprint opportunity for Barrie.
Excellent. Now, in terms of shaping the future, and you talked about alignment with the community, that's something that Tourism Barrie takes seriously and invests in, and you want that community feedback. Where's there an opportunity for the community to participate? You just recently did a master plan, but you've got the next phase of that.
Right, so we did a tourism master plan, and we've done the sport tourism strategic plan as well, so we have those two. And the next one is branding Barrie. We need to brand Barrie as a tourism destination, and we need a brand, and with that you need a unique selling proposition. So in 2025 we will embark on a very challenging community engagement and getting the community to, through consultation and getting a consultant, really, because that's above my expertise, to really hone in on the city and get people to speak about what Barrie's unique selling proposition is and branding our tourism.
What Barrie's unique selling proposition is in branding our tourism. Now, I'm going to jump in just for a second, because to the naysayers and those who roll their eyes and groan about all this money, about hiring consultants and planning, all those tax dollars, all that city dollars, we shouldn't, we already know who Barrie is. Why are we wasting all this money? I'm going to provide you with an answer here right now, and I think you'll put a smile on your face, because in fact it's not Barrie taxpayers who are paying for this.
Nope.
It's an exercise, and it is important. I mean, you go past a McDonald's or a Tim Hortons every few years, you see them refacing and rebranding their storefronts to better align with the user experience for their customer. Why are we doing this, and who's paying for it?
Well, again, Barrie is funded by municipal accommodation tax. So when you stay at a Barrie hotel, the guest is taxed, and that's how Tourism Barrie is funded. So there is actually no taxpayers' money in that. It is the MAP money that's going to be paying for that.
No resident, no property tax money, no property, no Barrie resident user fees. It's dollars that are already being generated under the provincial municipal accommodations tax.
And it also is a very sophisticated, complex exercise to do, because you're going to get everybody from 18 to 90 years old, telling you what Barrie's unique selling proposition is and what we're best known. And out of that conversation and out of all that input, something's going to rise to the top. And that's what you need to do with a unique selling. It's a complex, systematic exercise that we need to do, and something's going to come to the top, and we need the residents to tell us what that is.
And it's data driven. You mentioned earlier, again,
Yep.
off the top of the show, data doesn't lie. So
Nope.
there will be those who are strong advocates for something, and there will be someone who's a strong advocate against something.
Yes.
Probably that'll shake out, and we'll start to see. I mean, obviously, the goal will be around engagement, getting people to participate in that.
Yeah, and it'll also tell us where to strive to, and that goes back to aligning with your community, aligning for the aspirations of what your council and mayor want for your city, and aligning for what they want, their aspirations for tourism. So we need to put all of that together and do that for you to be a premier tourism destination and to strive for something and to move up, because Barrie is kind of mid-ground level, and we can only go up from here.
So Kathleen, you've been doing this for 22 years. You haven't quit yet.
Yes.
What is it that you love about it?
Oh, it's just every day you wake up, there's just something new. Right now, my big focus is getting more Barrie hotels built. We are out of our competitive set. We have 50% less hotels in Sudbury than Burlington, even Kingston. When we look in Kitchener-Waterloo, I think it's 30% more rooms than we do. So we need more hotels. And so just every year, something new comes up. And this is, we need to build more hotels. We need to get more investment in hotels. And how can I help facilitate that with the city of Barrie and economic development to empower them and give them the tools they need to find those investments and prove to hoteliers that Barrie's a good investment. And so I think that's all interesting. And every day you wake up, something new, and it's a very creative job. You help a lot of people, you help businesses grow, you help small entrepreneurs grow, and so all of that is very rewarding.
And since 2019, really, which was everybody knows where you were on that day kind of thing when the world shut down, our community has changed. The face of our community has changed, the demographic,
Yes.
where people came from. People either migrated to the east or the west, or they migrated to Barrie, for example. And so the face of our community has changed, and that is new data for you to really mine and understand. In this recent period, is there anything that's really sort of shocked you or jumped out at you as surprising that you've learned?
No, one of the really interesting stuff is Diwali. I think there's 5 Diwali festivals I got invited to, and so you really see there's a Latin festival, there's a Diwali festival, and the Indian Association, the Barrie Indian Association, because it's BIA as well, has come up with all these festivals, and I think that's something that's really interesting and surprising is the new Canadians and the new people coming to our community, bringing their traditions and just expanding that whole melting pot of Canada. And
You didn't say food.
And food. That's true.
Really, but you're absolutely correct. There are an incredible number of associations, whether it's the South Asian Association of Simcoe County or the BIA, Barrie Indian Association, Polish, German, British Club, the German Club. There are so many different cricket. Yeah, sport. We've covered a lot of ground here, obviously, and even outdoor walking tours, I think, is something that you mentioned that out of your new office, you're going to be able to do some walks.
Yeah. And also coming off the GO train with your bicycles, so all the cycling tours will start at the office. Hopefully with the GO train, we have some of those starting in the spring, and so that's also really fun to have, because now with the new tourist office, we can have that as a beginning and a starting point, and then walk off, do some historical walking tours, because telling your story is part of your sense of place and part of like who you are, and so getting those historical stories and how Barrie's beginnings, and I thought Lord Simcoe actually emancipated the slaves, and he's an extremely important person in history, and nobody knows that. So why are you at Lake Simcoe? So we hope to be able to tell those stories, and so yeah, it's interesting.
Well, Kathleen Trainor, Executive Director for the past 22 years and still going strong at Tourism Barrie. Thank you. People can find information information at tourismbarrie.com.
tourismbarrie.com.
And I want you to know that it is for you to participate. You get to participate, whether it's through the police service surveys or the City of Barrie surveys, the budget surveys, and now certainly participating and engaging and figuring out the future of tourism in the City of Barrie. It's all for you to do. So I want to thank you, and we'll see you next time on Barrie City on the Move.